All right, so today we're diving into I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay.
Looks like you've given us some really great material for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Some analysis excerpts, and honestly, there's a lot more to uncover here than I think either of us initially thought.
Yeah. Right.
Did you know that it actually started as a novel,
Oh, yeah.
not a slasher film?
Yeah. It's true.
Wow.
The Lois Duncan novel from 1973
Okay.
is more of a psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses on these ripple effects of choices that teenagers make,
Right.
but no masked killer.
Yeah, I was surprised by that, too, when I was doing the research for this.
Yeah.
But then the 1997 film comes along right in the middle of that whole Scream craze.
Right.
And suddenly we have a full-blown slasher on our hands.
It's
so interesting how that happened.
yeah, it's a classic example of how adaptations can totally transform source material,
Yeah, right.
especially when you think about what's popular at the time.
Yep.
So Kevin Williamson,
Oh, right.
the guy who wrote Scream, was brought in to write the screenplay.
Uh-huh.
And he brought that self-aware kind of meta horror style,
Yeah.
where the characters are kind of aware of horror movie tropes.
Yes.
And he really ramped up the slasher
Yeah.
elements.
Yeah.
And of course, he gave us that unforgettable image of the killer with the hook.
Before we go any further, can you give us like a quick recap
Sure.
of the 97 film's plot for anyone who hasn't seen it recently?
Absolutely. We've got our four main characters, Julie, Ray, Helen, and Barry.
Okay.
And they're out celebrating 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
After a night of partying, they accidentally hit a man with their car,
Right.
and they panic,
Yeah.
decide to hide the body.
Classic horror movie trope.
Oh, total.
Mistake number one.
Yeah, thinking they can just escape the consequences.
Yeah, but of course things don't stay buried for long.
Not a chance.
Right.
A year later, they start getting these creepy messages
Hmm.
hinting that someone knows their secret.
Uh-huh.
And then, bam, the fish
Yeah, right.
with his hook makes his entrance.
Yeah.
And from there, it's that classic cat and mouse chase.
Yes.
As they try to figure out who's after them
Right.
and, more importantly, survive.
It's that classic horror trope, right?
Totally.
Of past sins coming back to bite
You
you.
got it.
And it works so well.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Yeah.
We got sequels to contend with.
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay.
I Still Know What You Did Last Summer
Right.
hit theaters in 1998
Okay.
and sent our surviving characters on a tropical vacation.
Uh-huh.
That, surprise, surprise,
Yeah.
turns into another fight for their lives.
Yeah.
This one really leaned into those typical slasher tropes.
More blood.
Oh, yeah.
More chase scenes.
For sure.
More over-the-top kills.
Exactly. Then in 2006,
Okay.
we got I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay.
Now, this one tried to shake things up
Oh, really?
by introducing a new group of characters, a new location,
Uh-huh.
and even a supernatural element
Oh.
to the whole fisherman legend.
So they really went all out on that one.
They did, yeah.
Interesting.
Neither sequel really captured the magic of the original,
Right.
but they each tried to find their own way to keep the mystery alive.
Yeah. They were trying to like recapture that magic, but
Yeah.
it just didn't quite work.
It didn't quite get there.
And then there's the Amazon Prime series from 2021,
Right.
which tried to reimagine the story for a new audience.
Yep.
They went for a more modern feel, right?
They did.
Okay.
The series tried to give the characters more depth,
Huh?
added some social commentary,
Okay.
and threw in some new twists.
Interesting.
It's interesting to see how they attempted to make it relevant for today's viewers.
Yeah.
But sadly, it was canceled after just one season.
Ah.
It really shows you how tricky it can be to revive an older horror story
Yeah.
while still staying true to its roots
Right.
and trying to appeal to a new generation.
That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you walk that line?
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, what is it about the original that still resonates with people?
That's a good question.
Is it the slasher elements? Or is there something deeper going on?
I think it goes beyond the jump scares
Right.
and the hook.
Okay.
I Know What You Did Last Summer
Hmm.
taps into some pretty heavy themes.
Hmm.
Guilt, karma,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that we're all responsible for each other's actions, even if we try to pretend otherwise.
It's like the fisherman himself is the embodiment of that idea of vengeance, right?
Right.
Like he's this constant reminder that you can't escape your past.
Right.
And that hook, it's not just a scary weapon.
Right.
It's this symbol of their guilt, the thing that keeps them hooked to their secret and the consequences that come with it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that symbolism?
That's a really insightful observation.
Thank
It adds a whole other layer to the story.
Yeah.
The hook becomes a visual representation of their inescapable guilt.
Right.
This constant reminder
Yeah.
of the damage they caused.
Right.
And it plays into that central theme of teenage recklessness.
Yeah.
The film is saying that the choices we make, especially in our youth,
Right.
can have consequences that stay with us forever.
Yeah.
It's a message that resonates with everyone, I think.
It definitely makes you think twice about those questionable decisions we've all made.
For sure.
Right.
It serves as a powerful reminder that actions, especially those taken in youth,
Mm-hmm.
can have consequences that far outlive the initial event.
Oh, absolutely.
This leads to a question I have.
Yeah.
Why do you think they chose a fisherman as the killer?
That's a great question. I mean, on the surface,
Yeah.
it fits with the coastal town setting,
Right.
but there's got to be something more to it, right?
There is.
Okay.
If we think about it, the fisherman represents something very specific,
Okay.
something that's deeply connected to the town itself.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the fisherman in many cultures is a symbol of, the fisherman in many cultures is a symbol of sustenance, reaping what you sow.
Right.
But he can also represent that kind of like darker side of nature,
Mhm.
the unpredictable forces that can pull you under,
Okay.
So
you're saying that the fisherman
Yeah.
isn't just a random killer.
Right.
He represents something deeper.
Exactly.
Something connected to the town's secrets and the consequences that the characters are facing.
He's like a physical manifestation of their guilt, their fear,
Wow.
their past mistakes, literally coming back to haunt them.
It all ties together.
Yeah.
And that ties into the film's setting so well.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. A small coastal town shrouded in mist and secrets,
Right.
where everyone knows everyone else's business.
Right.
It creates this atmosphere of claustrophobia and paranoia where the characters feel like they can't escape their past.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of escaping the past, the sequels didn't shy away from bringing back the fear, did they?
Not at all.
Oh,
I still know doubled down on the slasher elements,
right.
but it also moved the action away from that claustrophobic town setting.
Okay.
Maybe that's why it didn't resonate as much.
Yeah.
Remember that feeling of being trapped in the original?
Yes.
The sequels, especially the second one,
Mm-hmm.
felt more like generic slasher flicks.
Right.
Less about the psychology of guilt and more about racking up a body count.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It lost that sense of atmosphere and dread.
Right.
And then I'll Always Know went in a completely different direction
Totally.
with the supernatural element.
Right. Adding the supernatural twist was a bold move.
Yeah.
But it kind of undermined what made the original so effective.
No. Okay.
The fisherman in the first film was terrifying because he was human,
Right.
driven by a very real, very understandable motive,
Mm-hmm.
revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Introducing supernatural elements lessens the impact of those themes of guilt and consequence that were so central to the original.
Okay, so it seems like the sequels,
Yeah.
while trying to keep the franchise alive, maybe strayed too far from what made the original so compelling.
That's a common pitfall for horror sequels, isn't it?
Yeah.
They often try to up the ante with more gore,
Yeah.
more elaborate kills,
Yeah.
but they lose sight of the heart of the story.
Right.
And in the case of I Know What You Did Last Summer, that heart is the psychological torment,
Mm.
the weight of secrets,
Right.
and the fear of being exposed.
And that brings us to the 2021 series,
Right.
which tried to modernize the story.
Yeah.
What did you think of their approach?
I appreciate that they attempted to update the story for a contemporary audience,
Okay.
exploring social commentary
Uh-huh.
and giving the characters more complex backstories
Yeah.
or interesting ideas.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the series struggled to find its footing.
Okay.
Maybe it was trying to do too much at once.
It's a shame it got canceled after just one season, though.
It is.
It would have been interesting to see where they took those ideas.
Right.
But this actually brings us to a fascinating question about the future of the franchise.
Okay.
Do you think there's still potential for new I Know What You Did Last Summer stories?
I do.
Okay.
I think so.
Could it be revived in a way that would appeal to both longtime fans and new audiences?
Absolutely. The core concept,
Yep.
a group of people haunted by a shared secret and a relentless pursuer,
Mm-hmm.
is timeless. But I think any future adaptation would have to go beyond just rehashing the original.
What do you mean?
Well, we've seen the slasher version,
You're right.
the supernatural twist,
Huh.
even the attempt to modernize it with social commentary.
Right.
Maybe it's time to explore the story's potential in a different genre altogether.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about the psychological depth of the original novel?
Yes.
Imagine a slow burn thriller,
Okay.
focusing on the mental and emotional toll of guilt
Right.
and the paranoia of living with a life-altering secret.
Ooh, I like that. It could be like a modern-day Hitchcockian thriller.
Exactly.
All suspense and psychological tension with that looming sense of dread that the original did so well. It would be terrifying in a completely different way.
Exactly. You could really dig into the characters' psyches,
Right.
explore how the guilt eats away at them,
Mm-hmm.
how their relationships crumble under the weight of their secret,
Yeah.
and think about how the story could be adapted to reflect our current anxieties.
You mean like the fear of being exposed online?
Yes.
Having your secrets revealed for the whole world to see?
Precisely.
Oh, wow.
In the age of social media where everything is documented and shared,
Right.
the threat of exposure is even more terrifying.
Right.
One wrong post, one careless tag,
Yeah.
and their whole world could come crashing down.
Oh, wow. That would be terrifying. The killer could use social media to torment them, hacking into their accounts, posting cryptic messages, maybe even manipulating their online presence to turn their friends against them.
It would be a chilling commentary
Yeah.
on how technology can be used to manipulate and control our lives.
Mm.
And it would tap into a very real fear that many people experience today.
It's like a whole new layer of horror
Right.
built on top of the classic themes of guilt and consequence.
Exactly.
You could even play with the idea of the fisherman as this digital entity,
Oh, yeah.
a kind of online boogeyman who represents the dark side of the internet, the part where our secrets go to die.
That's brilliant.
Thanks.
And it could be visually stunning, too.
Yeah.
Imagine the way you could use technology to create a sense of paranoia and unease,
Right.
distorted images, glitching screens,
Mm-hmm.
the feeling of being constantly watched.
Yeah.
It could be a truly unsettling experience.
So even though the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise has had its ups and downs,
Yeah.
it sounds like there's still plenty of life left in the story.
Absolutely. The themes are universal.
Right.
And the potential for adaptation is huge.
Yeah.
With the right creative vision. I Know What You Did Last Summer
Mm-hmm.
could be reborn as a truly terrifying and thought-provoking horror experience
Right.
for a new generation.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah.
What resonates with you most about this story?
I think what gets to me is that feeling of inevitability.
Okay.
That no matter how hard you try to bury your past, it will always find a way to come back and haunt you. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the killer is just a person taking revenge for a perceived wrong makes it even more chilling. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create ourselves. But what about you, dear listener?
Yeah.
What sticks with you? Is it the chilling image of the fisherman, the suspense of the chase, or the deeper themes of guilt and consequence?
Right.
Take a moment and think about it.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Welcome back. So we've been on quite a journey.
We have. With I Know What You Did Last Summer, haven't we?
Yeah.
From a suspense novel to a slasher classic.
Right.
And even exploring what the future might hold for the franchise.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating how this story, which started with a focus on the psychological consequences of teenage choices,
Right.
transformed into this pop culture phenomenon that's still relevant today.
It is. Yeah. It's really interesting to see how it's evolved over time.
And even though the sequels and the reboot might not have reached that same level of acclaim as the original,
Right.
they show how this story has continued to intrigue audiences and filmmakers for decades.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes you wonder, what is it about I Know What You Did Last Summer that keeps people coming back?
I think it's that combination of timeless themes
Okay.
and effective storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of past mistakes coming back to haunt us,
Right.
the burden of guilt,
Yeah.
the struggle to escape the consequences of our actions.
Right.
Those are all universal experiences
Mm-hmm.
that resonate deeply no matter what generation you belong to.
And the way the original film blends those themes with the slasher genre is so clever.
It is, yeah.
It's not just about the blood and gore.
Right.
It's about the psychological torment,
Mm-hmm.
the paranoia,
Yeah.
the feeling of being trapped in a web of your own making.
Exactly. And let's not forget the visual elements that make this franchise so memorable.
Right.
The chilling image of the fisherman with his hook.
Yes.
The dark and atmospheric setting of the coastal town. The suspenseful chase scenes.
Yeah.
They all contribute to a truly unforgettable horror experience.
It's funny, we often talk about, like, iconic horror villains like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees.
Right.
But the fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer deserves a place among them.
Oh, absolutely.
He's not supernatural or otherworldly.
Right.
He's a human driven by a very real, very relatable emotion. Revenge.
And that's what makes him so terrifying.
Right.
He represents the dark side of human nature. The capacity for violence that exists within all of us.
Yeah.
He's a reminder that the most frightening monsters aren't always the ones we imagine.
Right.
Sometimes they're the ones we create.
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
And it speaks to the power of the story to stay with you long after the credits roll.
For sure.
It makes you think about the choices you make, the secrets you keep, and the potential consequences that lurk beneath the surface of our lives.
Absolutely.
Well, as we resurface from this deep dive into I Know What You Did Last Summer, we're left with a renewed appreciation for a story that's much more than just a slasher flick.
Right.
It's a cautionary tale about the weight of secrets, the enduring power of guilt, and the importance of facing the consequences of our actions.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive.
Of course. It was my pleasure.
I always learn so much from you. And dear listener, thank you for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.